But let's take a look at Trump's Truth Social posts, because what's funner to do than that? So this was him on Sunday, and I went over this. But he pretty much says countries from all over the world are suffering, so we're going to get involved. Operation Freedom, we're going to open up the strait. Okay? That was that. And then after that, this was him talking about what Iran was doing in response to that operation. So this reads here, Iran has taken some shots at unrelated nations with respect to the ship movement, Project Freedom, including a South Korean cargo ship. Perhaps it's time for South Korea to come and join the mission. We've shot down 7 small boats, or as they like to call them, fast boats. It's all they have left. Other than the South Korean ship, there has been at this moment no damage going through the strait. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane will have a news conference tomorrow morning. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Trump. Okay? And then look on this. Look at the shift. This is yesterday at 6:52. So in the evening, he says, based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we have had during the campaign against the country of Iran, and additionally, the fact that great progress has been made towards a complete and final agreement with the representatives of Iran, we have mutually agreed, while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, which is what's keeping the strait blocked, by the way, is our blockade on their ports. But anyways, Project Freedom, the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not agreement can be finalized and signed, President Donald J. Trump. Come on, bro. Really? Talk about a paper tiger. He's calling NATO paper tigers. And pay attention to the hypocrisy here. Iran proposed 14 points that they were willing to talk about to the United States, and it was sent to Washington. Donald Trump said publicly, I'm reviewing it. I don't know if it will be acceptable. Obviously, the plan was comprised of way too many maximalist demands that Donald Trump could not concede to. That's why he launched Operation Freedom. So you're telling me after a day of being in this operation and realizing it's not going to work and it's probably going to skyrocket oil prices because danger in the strait is going to be higher than it previously was, now you're ending the operation. That's why you're ending the operation, because you realize you're actually going to exacerbate the existing issue already. But instead, he uses the false notion that we're ending the operation because we actually have something with a peace deal now. No, you don't. You just said 2 days ago that their terms are likely unacceptable, and then you announced this operation, which is, to me, an implication that there is no such possible road to success out of these peace talks or out of the 14-point stipulation. And so that's why you started this. Now you're ending it because there's some success and maybe an agreement can be finalized and signed in the next few days. So it's like, what are we doing here? You know, what are we doing? And this is what I say. I'm telling you guys always, they're lying to you in your face. They're fooling you, and they're banking on you to be dumb enough to actually believe the bullshit. And I mean, what bigger tell that we don't know what we're doing? And then he tweeted this today. This was earlier this morning at about 7:41 approximately. Or no, exactly 7:41. I was right. Assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to, which is perhaps a big assumption, the already legendary Epic Fury will be at an end, and the highly effective blockade will allow the Hormuz Strait to be open to all, including Iran. Like, I like how he's talking about the Hormuz Strait being open to Iran as if they're not the ones blocking it. Okay, Mr. President. I don't know what he's talking about there. If they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will be sadly at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President J. Trump, Donald J. Trump. So this starts off by him saying, assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to. So whatever that means, really. We'll take a look at what Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth are saying. Marco Rubio is kind of flirting with the idea that this is over. Pete Hegseth was talking about it in some detail as well, but we'll look at just clips of what they were really talking about. We won't watch it in full.
And with that, it's time for your questions. So, Catherine, why don't we start with you first?
Hi, Catherine Herridge. I'm an independent journalist. Secretary Rubio, have you...
Let me see if I can turn captions on for you guys. There you go.
Seen any recent indications that Iran is willing to give up its nuclear weapons program that is credible, verifiable, and that would lead to an immediate de-escalation?
Well, look, this is a long-standing problem for them, right? I mean, they have wanted, they have always said they don't want a nuclear weapon. That's because they've always said that, they just don't mean it. And why do you say, well, how do you know they don't mean it? Well, we don't mean it because they're doing all the things, and historically have tried to do all the things that you do if you want a nuclear weapons program. For example, they innovate and try to innovate long-range delivery missiles that now, in some cases, are capable of reaching much of Europe.
They're mid-range, they're not long-range.
They build these large underground centrifuges for enrichment activity. There are countries in the world that are involved in the enrichment business, but these guys do it in mountains and in caves and in hiding. They've always had secret components of their nuclear program undisclosed.
Maybe it's because you've imposed sanctions on them for the last 40+ years and threatened to bomb them all the time, and Israel's always poking fun at the matter. And then you guys actually did it, so you vindicated them in building these things inside of mountains. Maybe that's why. And in regards to the whole nuclear situation, oh, they say they're not going to build a nuke, but they absolutely were planning on building a nuke. Again, the IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, is a religious military faction that is comprised of religious Shiite Muslim zealots that adhere to their religion pretty closely, which is why they're so hell-bent on this idea of martyrdom in the right to reserve their freedom. And their leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has said in several statements the building and production of a nuclear weapon is haram or forbidden because of the mass destruction that it can invoke on a civilian populist nation or a civilian population as a whole. That's been the whole thing. So we know they weren't going to actually build one. However, they were enriching to a high degree, well over 30%. They were enriching at 60%. But we had addressed that concern, and this is how you know they're bullshitting. We addressed the 60% issue by bringing them back down to 3% in 2015 and 2016 with the original Iranian nuclear deal. Donald Trump destroyed that in 2018. He came into office in 2016, and about a year and a half later, him and Mike Pompeo, the director of CIA, had greenlit the IRGC as a terrorist organization. So they imposed sanctions on Iran, they tarnished the deal, they greenlit all their leaders as terrorists, and then they went on to systematically kill high-ranking leaders in the IRGC over the next few years. The pager attack in Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah being the leader of Hezbollah in 2024, as well as Qasem Soleimani prior to that in 2020. So they killed all these guys systematically in order to open the door and make it a little bit easier for an entry into Iran and seizing that quote-unquote uranium, overthrowing the regime, which is the goal of Israel as regime change. That's the whole goal. Iran could have made a nuke a long time ago, and any expert would tell you this. They were not making a nuke. They were never going to make a nuke. The only thing that would push them in direction of making a nuke is killing the guy who had the religious authority to say no nukes, and then having his more extreme son succeed him as you are threatening their sovereignty. That's going to make them race to a nuke. If anything is going to make them get a nuke. That's the perfect recipe, what we've done in the last 70 days. And I've said this ad nauseum. If there's any time Iran is likely to build a nuke, it's now, as I'm talking to you. Because they're in the midst of a ceasefire that is super fragile and can end in a moment. Israel is continuously bombing Lebanon, southern Lebanon. They're desecrating Jesus statues. They're making the matter so much worse. And then on top of that, they just bombed a province south of Beirut, or a suburb of Beirut. And so you look at all of these things, and you look at the fact that Donald Trump is trying to repair the matter, but it's not really working. I mean, use your brain here. It's pretty obvious that we very well may go back to war. Iran knows that better than I do, probably better than you do. Maybe they have intelligence advances because they get their intelligence from Russia, or they get some sort of strategic go-ahead from China. Those are countries that they're strategically allied with. And so maybe in waiting for Washington to attack again or Israel to attack again, they're increasing their enrichment of uranium. It's a possibility. So everything he's saying is not only backwards, but goes against the war. If your goal is no nukes, well, then you should have tried to exercise diplomacy before killing every single ranking military official for 60 days straight.